Another day, another twist in the Robert Saleh 49ers defensive coordinator sweepstakes, plus one crazy ass name I just heard as a possibility for the job that's going to make you say, what the hell is going on inside the 49ers? What is good, everybody? Welcome to the original Gold Standard podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrero. He's Levin Black. We are part of the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Networks. A lot of stuff going on today, Levin. The twists and turns in the defensive coordinator search continue.
With no actual substance behind them.
Well, I wouldn't quite say that.
You know what I'm getting at. It's not like credible reports I'm hearing or this. It's, well, I think this is possible, or reading the tea leaves of who's dropped out of the Jags head coaching position and trying to then extrapolate that to what that means for the 49ers.
Right. So if you are unaware, if you're busy, you have a life, whatever the case may be, Adam Schefter tweeted early this morning that Liam Cohen is taking himself out of the running for the Jags head coaching job to stay in Tampa Bay. He's getting a fat new contract. Good for you, Liam Cohen. What that means for the 49ers is all of a sudden, Robert Saleh is a big candidate, threat, however you want to term it, to be the next Jaguars head coach. And that's obviously would throw a giant wrench into the 49ers plans. Saleh has a second interview scheduled on Friday. He's going to meet with ownership and all that stuff. I saw a tweet from, I think it was Jordan Schultz or somebody that said, yeah, here it is. It's from Jordan Schultz. Let me throw it up on the screen. Jordan says, Robert Saleh is flying into Jacksonville Thursday for a Friday meeting. While Cohen out of the running, many around the league view Saleh as a potential favorite, though it wouldn't be surprising if the Jaguars expanded their head coaching search, to which I replied to Jordan, if you're the favorite, they're not expanding the search. But that's where we are right now, where all of a sudden Trent Baalke might give the 49ers one more middle finger and hire away Robert Saleh.
It could be a blessing in disguise. Like I said, if they had better defensive coordinator candidates, if they had actually gone out and interviewed people, I would be perfectly fine with Saleh going to the Jags. Like I said, I don't mind him coming back, but I also remember that he wasn't a phenomenal defensive coordinator. So I don't want to pretend that he was, and we really need that guy back. The problem for me is the fact that it certainly seems like the Niners are taking the stance of, well, if Saleh doesn't get a head coaching job, he'll be our defensive coordinator. And if that doesn't happen, we'll fall back on Brandon Staley. To which I say Brandon Staley was here last year. So either Shanahan was chicken shit and unwilling to say, Staley, the job is yours because Sorensen's not cutting it. And I'm talking about in season when there was still season to play for. Mm-hmm. He could have easily done that at the bye week and said, look, Sorensen's not cutting it. We're going to keep him around, but Staley's going to be promoted to the actual defensive coordinator and play caller. Like, if Staley was good enough to be the defensive coordinator, he should have had the job by the end of the season with how things went. It just doesn't make any sense.
And from what you're hearing is that the 49ers knew that Nick Sorensen was over his skis and couldn't handle the job and wasn't ready for the job. And you literally had a guy in the building sitting there who had been a head coach and a defensive coordinator before, and you didn't do anything. So that, yeah.
I mean, there were rumors that Staley took over play calling towards the end, like last few weeks.
Right.
And suddenly you saw some disguised blitzing going on.
And maybe he did, but then why not just the whole thing is.
That's what I'm saying. If he's good enough for the job, you would have just hired him. If he's not good enough for the job, you're going after Saleh. So why would you then go back to Staley?
Right, you've already done your 2 interviews to satisfy the Rooney Rule, so you can hire Brandon Staley as before I finish this sentence if you wanted to do it. Tim Kawakami has been tweeting a lot of things over on Blue Sky, and some of them
we need to come up with a name other than tweet.
I know, posting. He's been posting a lot of things over on Blue Sky.
Yeah, but we say posting because Facebook called them posts.
Hold on. I think I put the wrong thing on the screen. Sorry about that, everybody. Let's try this one more time.
Call them blueies.
That sounds weird. Kawakami says, I wonder if Saleh will start to think, wait, if Liam Cohen doesn't want to work for Baalke in Jacksonville, why should I? Well, Saleh is already probably thinking that. might still want the job, but might have some serious questions for the old table slammer this week, which is, of course, referring to Baalke and Shad Khan and the ownership. We talked about it a little bit on the NFL show yesterday, Levin. There's no reason for Robert Saleh to take the Jags jobs. It's a terrible place to work. Trent Baalke is a snake. He's going to work against you if there's any adversity whatsoever. And like we talked about yesterday, if you really want the Jags job, go back to Shanahan for a year, rehabilitate your career, and then the Jags job's going to open up again because you know they're going to fire whoever they hire next anyway.
That's why, like, nobody should be accepting that Jags.
Right.
A lot of people have said no to it because what you're walking into is a GM who shouldn't be there anymore. Everybody knows it. It's a huge joke that Baalke is still the GM. So if you accept the position, what you're looking at is a team that's not ready to win. I mean, they're a 10-win team at best, I think. And so you're looking at, okay, if we lose, the GM's gone, and usually a new GM wants to pick their head coach. So I'm a one and done. Or best case scenario, we're mediocre and just barely good enough to make the playoffs, and then what? Because the GM is still not good enough to continue to build that roster. So it's a lose-lose situation. Like, and if I'm Saleh, I'm looking at it as if I go there and I fail again, I will be a two-time loser as a head coach. Even if neither one were necessarily my fault, it will be extremely difficult for me to get another head coaching position. There are very few people in the NFL that have had two chances of being a head coach, failed both times, and then got a third.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense for Saleh. To me, Saleh should be turning the job down.
I would agree because I think you're going to have more options. If you go with the Niners or any other team, doesn't have to be the Niners, you go to another team and you become the DC and kick ass, teams are going to come calling in the next hiring cycle. More options than just the Jaguars. And I guess theoretically, he's still in the running for the Raiders and the Cowboys job because neither one of those are filled, and he did interview for them. But I just don't think that Saleh should limit himself. And I'm not even saying that. I don't even know if I really want Robert Saleh as the DC. So I'm not biased here. Diego Figueroa, YouTube channel member, says Saleh really wants to go from Woody Johnson to Davis and no GM, Jerry Jones or Khan and Baalke. Right. Like those are the situations that he's in. And bosses matter. This is something that took me a little while to learn as, I aged in the workforce. Bosses matter. And you might think you have a bad one somewhere and then you work somewhere else and you realize, hey, you know what? That first boss I had wasn't really that bad. This new person I have is terrible. And that's a big, big factor in your success in your working environment and your working life. So we'll see what Robert Saleh does. A lot of people like me, and I think you, think that Brandon Staley is the backup plan for the 49ers if Robert Saleh becomes a head coach. But then you pointed out this post from Tim Kawakami on Blue Sky. See how fast I made that change? And he writes, it won't happen this way, but it makes better sense to me if Brandon Staley somehow ends up as the Jaguars head coach and Robert Saleh as the Niner DC. But if Saleh takes the Jacksonville job, remember my secret wild hair candidate, which I will bring up again by name if Saleh is off the board for the 49ers. Now, you may be wondering, who is this secret wild hair candidate? Well, it turns out Tim said it on a podcast with David Lombardi, and Levin and I did a little research, and we found out that the secret wild hair candidate is Steve Belichick, son of Bill Belichick. That would be a freaking wild, off-the-wall hire by the 49ers if it happened.
So, one, he should have spelled it hair as in the hair on your head if it's Steve Belichick, because if you've seen his hair, you know what I'm getting at. It's a mullet. Two, I just can't see it happening. Steve Belichick just accepted the defensive coordinator position at the University of North Carolina with his father. Do you think Bill Belichick would have taken the position as the head coach of the University of North Carolina? And if he thought his son was going to suddenly be like, hey, peace out, I'm going to the NFL? I don't know. I think there's a small chance it could happen because Belichick, we know, does have lots of respect for Lynch and Shanahan. So he might be viewing it as my son going there gives him the best opportunity to maybe develop into a head coach. So I'm going to let him go and I can run the defense in college. You know what I mean? I can see that being a small possibility, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If Steve Belichick wanted to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL, I feel like he wouldn't have accepted the University of North Carolina right away and waited for the interviewing process.
Well, there's a lot of people that think that Belichick himself won't end up as the head coach in North Carolina. I don't even know if his contract is even officially signed. Plus, his buyout goes way, way down later this offseason. So, like, who knows what's going to happen there? If you're watching the stream, you could see a picture of Steve Belichick. Maybe Kyle's just going all in with the mullets, like you said. He grew the mullet. Sorensen had a mullet this year. Steve Belichick's got the lettuce back there. Maybe that's how Kyle's evaluating these positions. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in need of a haircut because my hair naturally grows into a mullet. My hair top grows really fast until about 5 inches in length, and then the back just keeps going while the top stops growing. So I currently have a mini mullet.
Steve Belichick spent 2012 to 2015 as an assistant for the Patriots. He was a safety coach from 2016 to 2018, defensive backs coach in 2019, outside linebackers coach 2020 to 2023. He was the defensive coordinator in college for the Washington Huskies in 2024. And now, like you said, he is at North Carolina with his dad. Kyle talked about with Sorensen how he wanted somebody that had the history and the knowledge and the experience to be able to adjust when things weren't working and to be able to adapt. Is that Steve Belichick? I know Kyle loves Bill, and I get that. But you're not hiring Bill. You're hiring Steve. And, that's like saying, well, I can't think of a good analogy, but it's just not good. It's not the same. I'll say that.
I will say that if Steve Belichick was really entertaining going to the NFL, there's a more logical place. The Patriots just hired Vrabel. They're bringing back Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. You get the whole gang back together, at least in name, if you bring in a Belichick.
Yeah, but to be fair to Tim, I think he said this. This is from like January 9th. So I think it was before that had happened. Just, I'm trying to be fair to everybody. Christian Geiger says, bring on the mullet. Apparently, some people are on board with the mullet. Brisby likes.
I will say I would like Steve Belichick more than Saleh because it's something new that might be more inventive. Like I said, Belichick scares me because it's sending the message of, hey, let's run it back again. We're back this time. We got the original defensive coordinator.
You mean Saleh scares you?
Yes, if they bring in Saleh. So I would personally rather have Steve Belichick because at least you're trying to change it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't know how much I want Saleh, but Steve Belichick, I don't know. It's a lot of inexperience, Brisby Life on Twitch says one coaching Nepo baby hiring another. That's funny, but it's also mean. Steve Belichick would certainly be something that we have no idea about, but we know Kyle and Bill have a good relationship behind the scenes. Obviously, they communicated to one another about the whole Jimmy Garoppolo trade. That's how that whole thing came about.
Sent Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers specifically because he thought Kyle could get the best out of him, and he wanted to do right by Jimmy because Belichick had chosen Jimmy over Brady, but then lost the power struggle when Brady went to the owner.
Right. So who knows? Personally, if your relationship with Bill is that good, convince him to be the defensive coordinator, quite frankly. That would be like, I would throw it out there. Nick Saban recently said if he ever came back to coaching, it would be in the NFL over college. Now, there's no way he wants to be a DC, but I would call him. Again, get his thoughts. You never know. What if he says yes? What if he's like, you know what? Screw it. I'll do it for a year. Like, who knows? There's no harm in making a phone call, right? They don't charge you for the call. You might as well do it. Leon Sandcastle, fantastic name, says he'd rather have Jim Leonard. I think that's who David Lombardi threw out as a possible wild hair candidate. That was someone that was generating a bunch of interest for a while. What's he actually doing right now? I don't even know.
I was going to say, I can't quite place him, if I'm being honest. I recognize the name, but I can't place where he was, why I know him.
He's currently a defensive back coach and a pass game coordinator for the Broncos. So if he's under contract, I mean, they could still interview him.
It's a promotion, so yeah.
Yeah, it can't be blocked because it would be a promotion, unlike the Jeff Ulbrich thing last year, which got blocked. I would love interview Jim Leonard. Yes, absolutely. Come on board. Like, please, please, please do that.
Being the pass game coordinator is also an interesting second title for him because, I mean, that means he's dealing with Sean Payton every day, so he's got to have a pretty good understanding of offenses. And you look at what Bo Nix did as a rookie, and you go, Well, maybe he knows a good bit about how offense works, and that would translate well to the defense. Kind of like if Kyle Shanahan had gone the defensive coordinator route rather than offensive coordinator, simply because he understands offense so well, he knows how to beat it.
Right. I saw this tweet from Akash on a Varathan, and this is not to pick on Akash. It's just representative of an opinion that I have seen a lot of people say when it comes to this DC search. And Akash wrote, I do think that there's movement behind the scenes for the 49ers DC position that's not being publicly reported. But for whatever reason, there hasn't been more formal interviews outside of Saleh, Townsend, and Staley. Maybe he knows something I don't. And that's entirely possible. But like, why a lot of people seem to want to give the 49ers credit and just assume that they're doing the right things behind the scenes, to which my response would be, we just saw the team screw up a defensive coordinator search last season. So how do they get the benefit of the doubt this year?
There have been times when we didn't know they interviewed somebody, and it doesn't come out until well after a hire is made. So I can get the reasoning. I have wondered the same thing. I just haven't been willing to go on record. But it is something that I ponder. Have they done kind of quiet interviews with other candidates that just haven't gotten known? Like neither side has wanted to let it know. Maybe they're currently employed by an NFL team, so the candidate was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm fine not having that go out and be public because if you don't choose me, I don't want the backlash." I don't know, but it would not shock me. Put it that way. I would not be any surprised, 0% surprised if they hire somebody and then a week later it's, yeah, well, they actually did interviews with, and there's like 2 or 3 names that we did not know.
Maybe, but I think the candidates more often than not would want their names out there, especially if it's people that necessarily aren't getting looks around the league because it makes them look good. It's like, oh, wait, the 49ers interviewed, whoever, Jim Leonard. Well, maybe we should be interviewing Jim Leonard, and the agents for these coaches would want their names out there as well. They have incentive to leak it. Again, I'm not saying it's not happening. Maybe it is. And if it comes out that the 49ers did a bunch of interviews behind the scenes, then I'll say I was wrong. To me, they've burned through the benefit of the doubt. I'm not just going to assume that they're doing the right thing because we just saw them muck it up. And we have seen them get tunnel vision for one person before and ignore other possibilities. Like with Kirk Cousins in 2017, they were going to sign him in free agency. They didn't scout Patrick Mahomes before the draft. We've seen them have tunnel vision before. So yeah, it is a scary thing in my head right now.
Oh, I'm absolutely not enthralled, not enthused or happy with the way this has gone. I don't like what the tea leaves are saying, but that's exactly the point I'm making. All we have is tea leaves. So I'm not closing the door on the possibility that there has been more going on that we just don't know. Because this team has done, when they want to, a good job of keeping things quiet. And we have seen instances when we didn't know they contacted a player. We didn't know that there was trade talks until a month later. I mean, you look at the Buckner situation, that's the big one that everybody, but there's been others where it was like, oh, wow, it's like thrown in months later, or somebody mentions it just like because they're not thinking about it anymore, weeks later, not realizing, oh, wait, that wasn't out there. You know what I mean? So it's just, I doubt they have, but I'm not surprised if they have either.
They certainly could. And like I said, if they are, then I'll be saying I was wrong. All I'm saying is I'm not just taking it on blind faith and assuming that it's happening. I need to see some sort of proof somewhere. And again, I don't know why you wouldn't just do this stuff publicly, if only to, kind of push back against this narrative that Kyle never changes. Kyle's not open to new ideas, right? Even from a PR perspective, just have that out there to give your guy a little, I don't want to say relief, but you know what I'm saying, to push back on that narrative a little bit.
I don't disagree with you, but we also don't know who those interviews were. So maybe they have interviewed Steve Belichick, right? Do you think that they would want that out there? Steve would be an extremely high likelihood, I would say, of who would want to keep that quiet. Not because he fears his father. I'm sure his father would know, but they don't want to start off their recruiting process with recruits knowing, well, hold on, the defensive coordinator might be leaving, or at least entertained it. So how likely are they to be here for my 4 years? Things like that. Like that can hurt recruiting.
Yep.
So it wouldn't shock me if they've talked to him and it's just not become public, because neither side would want that public.
That would be a candidate where you could see some negative consequences of word getting out, to be sure. That's fair. Man, if you're going to
I
go,
want it to be over. Like, I'm already sick of this. I was sick of this day one. This is not one I care to like sit around. It's not like free agency, like, ooh, they're talking to so-and-so, or a trade. Like, just hire the damn defensive coordinator.
If you're going to go for a Belichick, Bill is the one to go for. Okay, don't go for diet Belichick, right? Give me the real deal. Just saying. Brisbee Life on Twitch says someone checked the passenger manifests at the airport in Cabo. Who knows? Maybe they're there right now. I have no idea. So we'll sit and we'll wait for the defensive coordinator and the special teams coordinator search. We still don't know who they're going with for special teams coordinator. I think there's a thought that the Niners want to announce the whole coaching staff in one shot. So maybe they've already decided who that person is. Mike Silver did tweet out that he does not expect it to be Nick Sorensen. Hooray for that. They've interviewed multiple experienced special teams coordinators. I love the way they're conducting the special teams coordinator search.
Yeah, if it was going to be Sorensen, I feel like it would have been announced already. So I'm not going to pretend to know enough about special teams coordinators to say, I want this guy. I want more so Kyle to pay a little bit of attention and value special teams, because that seems to be part of the issue. Like, I wish there had been a follow-up when he said, it's not like we haven't invested resources. We signed Odom specifically for special teams.
Mm-hmm.
The follow-up to that was, well, then is there a scouting problem or an evaluation problem? Because clearly Odom didn't make the difference. So in retrospect, maybe you should have done something else. Special teams has been bad since they converted Mostert from a gunner to a running back. That's how long ago.
They signed Odom, and Oren Burks too was part of that. And there was somebody else I can't remember, but like they tried to address it on multiple fronts. Just seeing this breaking news from Adam Schefter. This is not coaching, but it will have an effect on the coaching. Oh, great. That's too small for everybody to see. Sorry about that, everybody. A new leader in Vegas. Raiders are finalizing a deal to hire Bucs assistant GM John Spytek as their new general manager, according to sources. Not shocking to me that Tom Brady would look to Tampa Bay as a source of people to bring in as he now runs the Raiders. I have no idea what this means in terms of Robert Saleh for the Raiders.
Part of me does giggle at the last name, and it's Brady.
Brady's hiring.
Lie. Yeah, he's hiring Spytek in the NFL. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think Brady had a lot of say-so on the Bucs roster while he was there, and that's probably somebody that he aligned with, and he knows that they see a lot of things eye to eye. That is pretty clear that I think Davis has given up day-to-day say-so to Brady.
Who friggin' knows? But like you, I want this to be over. Like, I'm tired of talking about Robert Saleh and the rumors every day. Like, just give me somebody. Give me somebody and let's go. Let's get to work. I mean, the combine starts in a couple of weeks. Like, you got to get your ducks in a row here. And hopefully it all lines up and we will see. And of course, we'll be here with you every step of the way. One thing I did see when it comes to coaching hirings is Ben Johnson. He's obviously going to Chicago. He's taking Dennis Allen with him. He had a press conference today, his first with the Bears, and he said something that I pray to God Kyle Shanahan somehow hears and comes to Jesus with, Levin. And I wanted to play it for you. I assume you haven't seen any clips from the Ben Johnson. Okay. And chat, let me know if you agree, disagree, whatever. Listen to Ben Johnson talk about how much Caleb Williams impacted his decision to come to Chicago. Here is Ben Johnson from earlier today.
Modern football in the NFL is quarterback driven. That is no secret. You can look at analytics right now. Quarterback success is a higher predictor of winning and losing than turnover ratio, which it's been for 20 plus years. Okay. That's changed. So there's no doubt Caleb played a large component into my decision.
Okay. And he goes on to talk about Caleb Williams. He's great, blah, blah, blah. But the first part of that, Levin, quarterback success is the biggest determinant to essentially winning football games, even more than turnovers. I don't think Kyle Shanahan believes that. I still think Kyle thinks it's turnovers. I don't think he values the quarterback position enough.
I think that's a bit of a misnomer. One leads to the other. If you have good quarterback play, guess what the quarterback doesn't do in order to be good? Turn the ball over. So to me, they kind of go hand in hand. If you have running backs and wide receivers that are incredibly mistake prone and have lots of fumbles, thus you get the turnovers despite the quarterback being good, yeah, that's going to cost you a lot of games. They go hand in hand. You're not going to have a lot of turnovers if you have the proper leader playing for that team as the quarterback. I will give Ben Johnson A++ for suit and tie choice.
He also trolled the Packers. He said he talked about how much respect he has for Kevin O'Connell and the other coaches in the division. Then he said, I did enjoy beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. So well done, Ben Johnson. But I disagree with something you said. I think you can have a quarterback position that doesn't turn the football over, but isn't necessarily that great. And the example I give to you is Alex Smith on the 49ers. He did not turn the football over very often, but he wasn't very good. He was just a guy. You need a guy that can put up touchdowns and move the ball and score points. Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl the year he led the NFL in interceptions. Why? Because he also threw 40 friggin' touchdown passes. You need that. Even more than the turnover thing, you need the guy that can get the ball in the freaking end zone. Ben Johnson gets it. I don't think Kyle Shanahan is quite there yet.
So my take on that is you're grabbing the outlier. You're having to go back 10 years to a quarterback to find a quarterback that fits doesn't turn the ball over, but wasn't actually all that good, but still remained a starter. The era of game managers is mostly gone. The game managers these days are like Jared Goff. You know what I mean? Like, they're still pretty darn good. The Kyle Ortons of the world don't get the starting gig anymore. If they do, they don't hold on to it. So it's, to me, if you have quality quarterback play, you should have a lot less turnovers, except for some very rare outlier extreme examples.
See, I think Brock Purdy this year was the guy of what we're talking about. 20 touchdowns, 12 picks. Didn't have a ton of interceptions, but had enough and didn't score enough. Like, if he had 30 or 35 or 40 touchdowns, nobody would give a rat's ass about the 12 picks. The 12 picks become a lot more relevant when you're only throwing 20 touchdowns. Like CJ Stroud, he had 20 and 12 this year. Tua Tagovailoa, now he only played in 11 games, but 19 and 7. You need more than just not turnovers. You need freaking touchdowns.
What made the difference for the Bills this year?
What made the difference?
Josh Allen stopped turning the ball over.
Well, he also puts up 40 touchdowns every year.
Right, and they didn't make the playoffs the previous year because he had a bunch of turnovers too.
Wait, what year did they not make the playoffs?
I was pretty certain they didn't make the playoffs one year. No, they
won the division last year. They were 11 and 6.
Yeah, I'm mixing two teams in my head. The point being that what has held them back and what Josh Allen has gotten constant criticism for is his turnovers. And he stopped doing them this year, and it's not a surprise that they're a lot better this year than they have been.
What has held them back is Patrick Mahomes. He's eliminated Josh Allen from the playoffs 3 or 4 times. I think that Josh Allen has gotten way too much criticism for his turnovers. I just think that Patrick Mahomes is really freaking good. Sorry, I'm just seeing a tweet from Benjamin Albright about the Jaguars situation. I'll throw it up on the screen for everyone. We can't escape it, Levin. Benjamin Albright says, the Jags definitely considered Cohen the leader in the clubhouse for their job. I just don't think Shad Khan understands exactly how much of a detriment the specter of Trent Baalke is to prospective coaches. Khan trusts Baalke and likes the input he gives him and the way he delivers it, and seems too insulated to understand outside opinion runs very different to his own. Jags' backup plan was largely Robert Saleh. We will see if they hold to that or open the search back up. Do you think in his heart of hearts, Trent Baalke wants to hire Robert Saleh as an FU to Jed York and the Niners?
I don't think he cares. I think this is his job on the line. He's not going to make a head coaching hire out of spite. He's going to make the head coach that he thinks can save his job the best.
Apparently. Maybe it's not his last hire. Who knows? The guy's like an NFL cockroach. You can't get rid of him. He's done nothing to warrant still being the GM.
Yeah, it's just, I don't care what situation I'm in. Even if I'm like some lowly coordinator that didn't get any other head coaching interest, nobody else has mentioned me, but the Jags call and ask for an interview. I interview and they offer me the job. I would still turn it down. It is as guaranteed as it can be that you will not have a long coaching career as the head coach of the Jaguars. As far as I can't think of a worse situation to go into. I literally can't think of one. Maybe there has been one in the 30 years that I've been watching the NFL, but you're literally talking about a roster that's not good enough, that has been missing in drafts left and right, and won't get rid of the GM that's been doing it. Yet you have to believe that they're 1 year away from getting rid of that GM. Thus, you're coming into a situation of as close as you can get to certainty of the GM is gone the following year, which likely means the coach is too.
Right. That's chaos. That's the worst thing for you if you're a head coach. The guy that hired you is no longer there, because anybody that gets the job is going to want to replace you with their guy, their choice, their hire. So it's a vicious cycle that you get into over and over again. AW says DeMeco Ryans wanted a franchise quarterback. Adam Peters wanted a franchise quarterback. Ben Johnson wanted his grandson quarterback. Kyle's scheme is more important than the quarterback. I would love to just play that Ben Johnson for Kyle and ask him if he agrees. Like, I would be fascinated to hear Kyle's answer to that. I think he would answer similarly to how you responded, quite honestly.
I think Kyle views it as, yeah, that's true. I thought the scheme was more important than the quarterback. And then we didn't get the job done. So I changed course and said, we got to go get one of these top guys. But then it failed miserably. And I realized it's not worth the investment because the risk of getting a bust is too high. So I need to find the guy that's just good enough to make my scheme shine. You know what I mean? I feel like he would say, what are you talking about? We went for Trey Lance, but that's the problem. That's the rub. In order to get one of those guys, you got to take a shot in the dark that you're getting the right guy and put in multiple years worth of investment in the draft to get that quarterback, because they all go highly in the draft. I feel like that would be his answer, that, yeah, he was open to change and it blew up in his face. So he's going to go back to what he knew.
Yeah. And that would be just like Kyle to assume, well, the problem was that we went in the draft for our quarterback, and not the problem was I picked the wrong quarterback in the draft, right? Like, yeah, I think he was right to follow that instinct of like, hey, we got to get a guy. And then after 4 starts, he completely abandoned it and went right back to, you know, what he knows, or at least going with a guy in Brock Purdy, who it looks like right now, let's be honest, he's not one of those elite generational guys. Doesn't mean he's not good, but he's not in the Mahomes, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen class.
No, I mean, you can win a Super Bowl with Purdy, in my opinion, but you're not going to have a dynasty with Purdy. Put it that way.
Let's take a look at that real quick. Who was the last Brock Purdy, so to speak, if you know what I'm saying, that actually won the Super Bowl? Because off the top of my head, I can't think of one. Like, who is it? Because it's been Mahomes and Brady for so long.
It's pretty obvious it's the Eagles.
Foles is the guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the Eagles, because you've had Brady, Mahomes, and Stafford since.
Right. And yeah, maybe, like, I guess it's possible because Nick Foles proves that, and he beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. So, like, facing, you know, so to speak, the highest level of competition.
Right.
But that's one guy. If you want to say broke ass Peyton Manning for his second one, maybe, but he's still Peyton Manning. Like in the history of the NFL in the last 2 decades, who's the guy? You want to say Flacco, but don't forget Flacco played elite. He had 11 touchdowns and no picks.
Yeah, but all quarterbacks that are in this realm that we're talking about are capable of having the Flacco playoffs. That's usually what it takes. Is you got a good quarterback, but not an elite quarterback who gets a 3 to 4 game stretch where they play elite. That's the Eli Manning, the Joe Flacco. I wouldn't even put Nick Foles in that bracket. Nick Foles was a borderline starter that just had a magic playoffs.
Well, he was backup. He would never have seen it if Carson Wentz didn't get hurt.
Right. But it is possible. I would venture, I guess, in recent times, because things have changed a little bit. Back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, yeah, you could be a mediocre quarterback and still get a Super Bowl. Now, not so much, because they made it such a pass-driven. They've changed the rules to literally make offense more important. But I would say probably 1 out of every 5 to 7 Super Bowls has one of those quarterbacks. I would put Peyton Manning in that boat with his last Super Bowl. He was a garbage quarterback who was able to win. He didn't even do much in the playoffs. It wasn't like he was elite in those playoffs. He wasn't very good in those playoffs, but they didn't need it because they had a phenomenal defense.
He was not very good that year. So yeah, I mean, he was still Peyton Manning. He still did a lot at the line of scrimmage. I think more than a Purdy type quarterback would do. Again, how much credit do you want to give him for that?
But he was also much, 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 much more limited of a thrower than any quarterback that's ever won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he was pretty bad. I mean, but then again, like a couple years earlier, he was just as bad, and he set the record for yards and touchdowns in a single season because he was so damn smart. We got more breaking news, Levin. The Jets, according to Ian Rappaport, the Jets have a deal for Aaron Glenn to be their new head coach. The former Jets first rounder lands with his old team. A move now celebrated by countless Jets legends. I don't know how many Jets legends there are. I'll just throw that out there. The Lions defensive coordinator was the team's top choice. He thanked the Saints and accepted the position with the Jets. There you go. Detroit Lions. It is rough. Ronnie Bell just got signed to like a reserve future contract. Ronnie, you're joining at a bit of a low point for Detroit.
Yeah. I feel a little bad for Lions fans. The way the year ended and how terrible that franchise has been, to have it end this way, and then a week later or less than 2 weeks later, both your coordinators are gone. That's tough.
Womp womp. We lived it, Levin. We lived it. Okay. Like the 49ers coaching staff and front office got absolutely raided by the
We didn't live it because we're not the Lions. That's the difference. We were not a tortured fan base. We had success. This is the Lions.
Tough. Sorry, Detroit. Your grand revival got you a grand total of 2 playoff wins, and you lost the biggest lead in the history of the NFC Championship game. Do I feel bad for Detroit Lions fans? Not a single bit. Hell no. Absolutely not. After all the gloating they did, after beating the broken down 49ers this year, and all the talking that those players did after that win, no, I don't feel bad for you at all. Enjoy your return to irrelevance, Detroit.
They're not going to be irrelevant. They're just probably not going to be a contender.
Well, then they're not relevant.
You could be, if you make the playoffs, you're relevant.
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year. They're going to have to play a first place schedule. Ben Johnson is gone. Your defensive coordinator is gone. Jared Goff's going to turn back into a pumpkin next year.
It is possible. I still think that roster has plenty enough talent, and whatever offensive coordinator comes in would be very smart to say, hey, Jahmyr Gibbs, how do you feel about getting 400 touches next season?
Well, I mean, the dual running back system has worked for them, though, to be fair to them.
It worked even better when it became a single running back system because Singletary got hurt. Jahmyr Gibbs might be the best running back in the league. He's just handcuffed because he's in giving 150 to 200 carries a year to a different guy. Jahmyr Gibbs is ridiculous.
How about this tweet from Adam Schefter, which just underscores how much of a crapshoot it is when teams hire head coaches. Schefter writes, the Jets have hired 7 head coaches since the end of 2000 with Aaron Glenn. 6 of the 7 have been first-time head coaches with defensive backgrounds. Herm Edwards, Eric Mangini, Rex Ryan, Todd Bowles, Robert Saleh, and Aaron Glenn. The lone exception was Adam Gase. Ugh. So all you people saying we got to fire Kyle Shanahan, I'm just saying there's a huge chance that you get somebody way worse, and the Jets are a living example of it.
Yes, I get what you're saying. And Jed York's not some phenomenal owner, but the Jets' problems are the owner's problem. That's why the Jets are the Jets. It is Woody Johnson sucks at being an owner. That's their problem.
Well, Woody Johnson is terrible, and considers Madden rating apparently when deciding whether or not to make trades. I'm trying to see. Okay, no, nothing. I haven't seen anything about like who the Lions are interviewing to replace all these coaches or anything like that. But the dominoes are falling, and they started last week. They're continuing to fall, and I do think it does place more urgency on the 49ers to get this done. Let's say they don't hire Robert Saleh, and then they end up hiring somebody else. Are they going to let that guy bring in his own coaches? Because that guy, he's going to need coaches to choose from, and they're coming off the board here.
I mean, this could really backfire on them because as the head coaches accept their positions, guess what they have to do? Put their staff together.
Right.
Is there a possibility that somebody out there would be willing to bring in Staley as their defensive coordinator? Because if you're Staley and the Niners have said, well, we want Saleh to be the defensive coordinator, but if he gets a head coaching position, we'll hire you. And while you're sitting there waiting for Saleh to make his choice or see if Saleh is going to be the Jags head coach, another team calls and says, we want you to be our defensive coordinator. You're not turning that down. You're not sitting in limbo and saying, no, I'm good. I may possibly, if I'm lucky, have a chance of being a defensive coordinator here at the 49ers. No, you're going to say, yes, I accept, because you're going to take the guaranteed defensive coordinator position. So They could lose Staley in the next couple of days. I don't see it happening because usually when a head coach is hired, you already know who their coordinators are going to be. I mean, that's literally the questions that get asked in the interview process. Who can you bring in as your coordinators is a big part of whether or not you're chosen as a head coach.
And if you're Staley, like you said, one in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. Like the guaranteed job is worth more than a maybe potential promise from the 49ers, who, as you said, could have made him the DC all last year.
This does open up Jeff Ulbrich, though.
Well, he's hired in Atlanta. He's the DC. Yeah, he got hired by the
man, I am out of it. I forgot all about that. I leave Twitter and I lose all my news sources, and it's like I see things, but I don't see multiple posts about it, because I do remember seeing that on Blue Sky that he was hired away, but I didn't see multiple posts, so it didn't stick.
That's the thing. Like, that's what I mean. The backup plans seemingly are off the board too. It really does. Like, they are walking this freaking tightrope, man. And look, maybe they know that Steve Belichick is in the bag, right? They know that he'd be willing to come, and so they feel secure in the plans. Who knows? But right now, it is Robert Saleh if deciding between the Niners, possibly, and the Jags. And I guess, in theory, the Raiders and the Cowboys, because we don't know. Although it seems like the Cowboys are going to hire, of all people, Brian Schottenheimer to be their head coach.
Please do.
Right? Yeah. Can we take one NFC team off?
I know what they're doing with their first-round pick if they get Schottenheimer.
Running back?
It's got to be a running back.
Well, they do need one in their defense. I mean, God, their friggin' running game.
What was it, Dwindle? He was decent, but he's more of a give him 100 carries. He's not a bell cow. You bring him in, and he's the speedy guy that you bring in to give relief to the other guy.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing that Liam Cohen is making in Tampa Bay a contract that would have dwarfed what he would have made as Jags head coach. That's a bad look for the Jaguars. If you're paying your head coach a tiny salary while coordinators around the league are making more money. Boy, that seems like a great working environment in Jacksonville, doesn't it? Come have a crap owner, have a GM that's going to stab you in the back, and we're going to pay you crap money to coach a crap roster. Come on down.
If I'm Todd Bowles, I'm also looking at it as, worries me.
Why Todd Bowles?
I would be worried if I was in his shoes.
Oh, like because Liam Cohen is there and maybe could take your job?
Yeah, it certainly looks like they're saying Cohen. I would assume that there was communication that come here, we'll pay you like a head coach, and if we don't progress as a team, we want you to be the next head coach.
And honestly, I don't even think that's necessarily something that you need to expressly say, right? You can imply that. You could
yeah.
you could make it known without ever saying like, "Hey, you're the head coach in waiting." But it would be nice if you're the Bucks, right? And you have questions about Todd Bowles and you're like, "Hey, if we fire him, at least we know for Baker, like his guy is still here, right? There's still continuity between the offense and the quarterback. That's something that's important. We've seen Baker can play well for them under this system with Cohen there. So that would be very attractive if I was Baker and if I was Tampa Bay.
Yeah, this will be the first time in Baker's career he's had the same offensive coordinator for 3 years.
Which is crazy. Like, how else do you expect a quarterback to succeed? Which, we talked about this a lot with Trey Lance when he was there about how we didn't think they were doing right by Trey Lance. They were kind of doing him dirty with everything that they have done. In terms of Brock Purdy, they have done the opposite, right? They've brought in good players around him. He's had a completely stable system offensively for his entire career. Now, you could argue that the offensive line needs to be improved, and I would agree. But for the most part, in terms of the things you want to see for a young quarterback, the 49ers have provided that for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy, he was put in a basket at the orphanage and got adopted by the crazy wealthy corporation owner of a family. You couldn't get a better situation than what Brock Purdy fell into.
So you're saying he got put in a basket at the orphanage and got adopted by Daddy Warbucks?
Yes.
Correct. That was Daddy Warbucks was the end of that analogy. And I'm just proud of myself because my wife loves musicals. And that was like the one thing I know about musicals is Daddy Warbucks is from Annie. So
I absolutely despise musicals with every ounce that I have.
I'm not a musical guy. It's not my thing. My wife loves them. So I sort of have absorbed knowledge about them by default. To me, I just can't get past the random breaking out into song. That's always been weird to me. But
I need to suspend my disbelief and, get out of my life and escape into a movie. Oh, here's a whole bunch of people that are just randomly singing for no reason. Like it breaks you of the, suspension of disbelief.
Not my thing. If you like it, whatever. I'm just proud of myself for knowing Daddy Warbucks. I will say this, though. I do expect Brock Purdy to make a big jump next year. And when I say expect, I mean he had better play a hell of a lot better next year than this year. You are a young quarterback. You have good players around you. You have a great coach with you. You've been in the same system year after year. Like 20 touchdowns and 12 picks is not going to cut it next year, Brock Purdy. You got to throw 35, 40 touchdowns next year, and there's no reason you can't. And if you don't make that jump, that's going to be incredibly disappointing.
Yeah, it's I will say he wasn't as far off as you would think from having that type of season. It was 100% they couldn't finish the freaking drives. If they played an average red zone season, Brock Purdy has at least, high 20s touchdowns, if not into the mid 30s. So it's one of those like, yes, it was a bad season, and a good bit of that does fall on Brock. A good bit of it also falls on the rest of the leaders on the team, and a good bit of it falls on Kyle Shanahan, obviously. But they also just need to get a little bit better in a specific area of the field, and they're completely different.
You're right. He was absolutely in position to have that kind of season, but they didn't. And I can't have it next year, man. Especially if I'm going to be paying you that much more money. Cole Mesa says the human wet blanket doesn't like the whimsy and charm of a musical. Say it ain't so.
What charm?
When I think whimsy, I think Levin Black. I'll just say
that. They're singing in the rain, and then all others suck.
Christian Geiger says, quick question. I know this would most likely never happen, but would either of you trade Bosa for Crosby 1-for-1? I think I would. Crosby seems like a great leader and does more with less. I don't know if I would make the trade, but if I woke up tomorrow and the trade happened, I wouldn't be like crushed. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like they're the same side of a coin. You know what I mean? Not opposite sides of the same coin. same side of the coin. They're the same thing. They are both immensely talented. They both don't have elite speed. They succeed in technical ways, but they also both have major injury history. So it's kind of, Crosby is currently walking around in a boot. You saw that on his, in the studio for these playoffs. He was literally on a scooter hobbling around in the. I giggled at one point because they had this segment where one person was talking about one of the games, and then they would throw the ball to the next person who was talking about the next segment. And the last segment was I forget who was standing there with Crosby, but Crosby was the second person, and he's having to stand with his scooter on the camera. I'm thinking, why would you make him get up from the desk?
My wife asked me about that because on Fox they went to that shot where they're all standing up, and she's like, "Why are they all standing there?" And I'm like, "Because TV executives think you have to show the host in different positions, or people will turn the TV off. It's stupid. It's stupid and ridiculous. It doesn't matter. They're not watching because of the orientation of the hosts."
Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's stand up. I'm just kidding.
They did the same thing at PFT when we would be on remote. They would have the desk where everybody would sit. And then they were like, okay, for this segment, we're going to have you guys move over to the standing desk. And it's like, why? Who cares? And it's just, then the mic doesn't work over at the standing desk and you got to get the mic on and we're coming back from break. It's so stupid, but they all do it. So they must know something that I don't. But anyway.
Market research, Rob.
I guess. That is the facts as we see them. So again, as of right now, just to recap, Liam Cohen staying in Jacksonville. Robert Saleh appears to be the lead candidate for that job. Unless, of course, the Jags expand the search. Who knows? Saleh has an interview scheduled for Friday. The Jets are hiring Aaron Glenn. So bye-bye Detroit. Hello, New York. The Raiders have a general manager that came from Tampa Bay. And so we'll see who they hire as head coach. No word yet as to whether Robert Saleh is still in consideration for that job. There's also the Cowboys job, although I haven't even heard anybody say that Robert Saleh is a serious candidate in Dallas. But that's where things stand, Levin. Do you think by the time we talk next week that the 49ers will have a defensive coordinator?
I have no clue. I'm just, I would hope so, but I have no clue, and neither does anybody else. There are probably 2, maybe 3 people in the world that know. Lynch, Shanahan, and maybe Robert Saleh.
Maybe. Jed York not on that list, by the way. That sounds about.
I don't think he's involved in this. Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.
You forgot the special announcement.
What's the special announcement?
The Gold Standard musical coming in June.
Oh, God. You know, you say that. I forget that stuff all the time. I tease it at the beginning of the show, and then I forget to get to it. Like when I was supposed to announce that we were moving to Wednesdays and then completely forgot and left everybody hanging.
Just remember, it is a silent musical because you need to mute your TV. Otherwise, all your windows will break.
A silent musical. That sounds about right for us. Enjoy your Wednesday, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.